Thank you, Professor David Yuan, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, to come to the seminar. To start with, Professor David Young has been my friend for about 15 years. We know each other, and I have come to Hong Kong many times in the past. You probably don't know. I have been appointed as a visiting professor, adjunct professor by other universities in Hong Kong. So I have visited many times Hong Kong as a visiting professor or adjunct professor in other universities, and whenever I have came, I have always tried to meet with Professor David Young, and I also have come several times to Macau, and I have been to the mainland China also many times. So I am not very new in this area. So it's nice to give this talk to you. The talk is on game theory. As you know, I mentioned I know Professor David Young for about 15 years, and I had in my mind to do, because of my respect and appreciation for his work, I had always in my mind that one day I will do some game theory work. But it took me 15 years to slowly to move to this area. So I am very new, and I have moved because probably mainly because of my respect and appreciation for David Young, that his contribution to game theory. So finally, I am very happy that I have been able to move to this area. I just moved very recently, so maybe I am also a newcomer like some of you in game theory, because all my 20 books in the past which have been published, I didn't use any game theory but they are all mathematical modeling, but mathematical modeling like a different form of optimization, stochastic optimization, optimal control, that sort of, but not game theory. But as I said, I am very new, so I think by this time, though I'm very new in game theory, but I think I have picked up it quite well, and I'm confident that I think I know game theory quite well, whatever necessary to know for a successful academic in that field. So why I'm saying that is that for if anybody else is interested in game theory, to start is not difficult, that's why I'm saying all those things. Anybody can pick up very quickly if I can. And my few things about my presentation. The presentation will be quite simple because it's not because of that I don't know mathematics, but I thought given the presentation, public lecture, so I have made it very sort of more application side, focused on application side. But the mathematics sometimes is necessary. And one thing before I go to formal presentation, I should stress to the audience is that mathematics game theory started as a mathematics subject, but game theory does not have to be mathematical. In game theory there is mathematics, but game theory has intuition, issues, ideas, concepts, theoretical aspects, strategic aspects. And in game theory, mathematics is important, certainly, but the strategic aspects are also equally important. And I think in the current world, the application or strategic side or intuitions sometimes probably be more valuable than the mathematics side. And though given my mathematics expertise, my focus is currently on the application side or intuition side, because I think they are very important to fix many of the global academic and practical problems. But mathematics side is also very important. And one of my wishes in the current life, I may not be able to do it, But my wish is that in my next life I can be a strong mathematician like Professor David Young. So that is my wish for my next life. But in the present life I will focus mainly on applications of game theory to solve many global problems in the world. Because for me, game theory is a mission. It's a commitment. It's a belief. It's not a research method. As I said, I am only about a year or so in game theory. But what I understand that we should consider game theory not as a research method, but as a paradigm. And it's very significant. As I proceed, I'll try to make the point that a large number of my PhD students now are using game theory, and some of them think it's so important, and the commitment is so important, they think it's like a cult, like a so strong belief. So game theory can be a belief, so it's not a research method, or it's not an academic area, it's a belief, it's a way of life, a mission. So my purpose professionally is to really enhance game theory intuition to contribute to the solutions of many academic and practical problems in the world. And if we are seriously interested in really fixing problems, practical and academic, and especially if we are in business discipline, then game theory is the only way to do it. All the other methods, because I have done books using econometrics, I have done books using structural equation modeling, optimization, almost everything, almost all advanced mathematical stochastic programming and so on. But I think game theory is the most relevant paradigm, not a method, paradigm to really address business issues. Otherwise, the discussion may be inappropriate. So it is nothing, with all respect, the other subjects, because like you, all my previous research is actually based on other methods, non-game theory methods. But however, so I can easily compare, and I can see the game theory is the most relevant paradigm to do any sort of really meaningful and many meaningful and really sensible and giving useful implications and solutions in any business problem. I mean, that's my conclusion. That's why I am a bit very passionate about game theory. As you can see, within only few months, I think I have developed a lot of expertise in this area, because sometimes I have read these game theory materials until 2 o'clock in the midnight because I like it so much. So from that perspective, we'll proceed to our formal discussion. So firstly, I will say the nature of this of the presentation, but something about my profile. Just to mention that I have actually published about 200 articles, not 20 articles, and out of them, about 22 in A star and A grade publications. So out of 200, about 22 A star or A grade publications, other in B and C and book chapters, and also 21 books, and most of them are published Elsevier, Springer or Macmillan and so on. So with that research experience, I am hoping to now, full-time moving to game theory. So this is a forum for me to, share. It's a more interactive, sharing my interest and knowledge and understanding of game theory with you, and especially giving a talk in front of Professor David Young, who is a leading world expert of game theory, is not a very easy task. I'm a bit nervous, but I think I will manage until to the end. nature of this talk, as you can see, I have given up my background. I quite follow global humanistic approach. I also do very rigorous scientific analysis, but my analysis and my philosophy is more secular, and I believe in secularism. So more scientific, modern and progressive sort of things. And as you know, I have done study and research in many subjects, so my approach is also multidisciplinary. What I'll talk, there may be many things in my presentation, so I'll have to probably go quite fast. If you have any questions, you can ask me when I am proceeding, but also you can ask me at the end. I understand, when I finish, the PDF copy of this PowerPoint presentation will be distributed in the faculty through global faculty email, so you will get the full presentation in any case. So it may not be very difficult to cover all the materials here. So these are the sort of things I will cover. We'll go through like some game theory basics and some different forms of game, and what are the elements of game theory and different dimensions of game theory, and give some examples of well-known games and some solution methods, and then areas for research and practices. Game theory, what are the areas generally can be used for research, but it can be used practice, that's the important thing. We have to understand that game theory is really used in real life in many business practices. So it's not only used for academic research, but it is really used in professional field as a sort of and then second part of the first we will discuss what is game theory, what are the principles, and then in that one the game is given, a game is given, then we try to understand and analyze. But the second part, there is sometimes we need to design games. The game is not given. The problem is given, we need to find some game that can be helpful solve the game. So that is called designing games, or that is called mechanism design, which is another field and an application of game theory. And as you probably know, all of you, that game theory is so important that in recent years many people got Nobel Prize for their contribution to game theory. This is the only topic or area where so many people have got Nobel Prize in the world. In no other subject, no other discipline that has happened. And this sub-discipline mechanism design, which is also very important, this area also many academics got Nobel Prize. So also in 2016, two people got Nobel Prize. They are also a similar area in mechanism design, contract theory, which is an applied game theory area. So you can see game theory is so important, so because repeated award of Nobel Prize shows the significance of this of game theory. And my understanding, really there is no problem in the world where game theory cannot be applied. So I will go through that, but as I said, second part I will also briefly discuss what is called mechanism design. How do you design a game to solve the problem, to achieve your objectives. Doing game, essentially game, playing game, that mechanism design. And in the third part we will actually cover some brief other issues in game theory. So we start, what is game? The basic definition of game. A game is a scheme or strategies or diplomacy, actions, plans or tricks, intention. If we have an intention, so like we are in a game situation, there is an audience and I am the speaker. So we have some sort of interaction here. So this is also a game situation. So any sort of game theory, although sports are also games, but game we are not meaning a sports sense, but sports are also games, because there are rules of sports and so on. There are different agents, they are interacting, they are also games. But game theory is more on strategic side, on intention, plan, tricks, motivation. And formally definition, game theory is a mathematical study of strategic interdependent interactions such as negotiation, conflict, cooperation in a multi-agent system for optimal decision making and strategy formulation. So this is a very simple definition of game theory. And there are several elements of should be the game theory. Like uses of game theory for business. What are the areas where game theory can be or game theory is used in business practices? For decision making, like if we want to decide, like there is for example we are forming an association like OPEC, and this is OPEC is a game. So what sort of decision do we make? OPEC oil production, for example. So there is a question of decision. So the game theory can be make that sort of oil production or pricing decisions. And strategy formulation. For negotiations, for cooperation, conflict resolution, for coordination, for relationship development such as altruism, reciprocity, managing risk, developing contracts, incentives, and formulating also organization, developing organizations. These are the sort of areas where game theory is really in practice used in real business in many parts of the world, and there are a lot of consultancy report and other reports showing these sort of applications of game theory in real life business case studies. And in business also, these are the functional areas that we have discussed, but in all subjects in business, there are many applications of game theory. In business strategy, accounting, auditing, finance, supply chain management, IT, business laws, economics and marketing, franchising, there are all areas, there are many business game theory applications also. And in broad subject area, like in business and economics and engineering, law, computer science, politics, psychology, sociology, biology, war, finance, in all sort of broad areas also, in almost every area, from my research it shows, I don't know any other area of human life where game theory has not been applied, including religion. There is a book called Games of Life, How to Play It. In that book, the author has discussed the existence of God and then the Christianity, and in a more using game theory framework, the game between the God and human being and all that sort of thing. So and ethics and morality, it's an emerging area of game theory is ethics and moral philosophy that I will also briefly mention. And so, as I said, I have even in divorce, even there are some game theory programs for dating, marriage, divorce, and so on. So, as I said, there is hardly any area of life where game theory probably has not been applied already. So, game theory can be different forms. The cooperative, non-cooperative, normal, extensive, and 2-person to n-person, stochastic, dynamic, evolutionary, and behavioral. Generally, briefly, I will not be able to go all through of them, because when there are strategic interactions, then the game can be for cooperation or in the cooperative form, like the agents, parties are cooperating to each other. So normally we call them the cooperative game theory. And it can be non-cooperative, like if there are conflicts between the agents or parties, in that situation game can be, in the game models are non-cooperative game model. And two other important games are dynamic evolutionary games. Dynamic, but it's better to also think in terms of evolutionary game, where because the decisions and interactions are not really one time, so this will involves time, so it's better to study these interactions over time. And if we can study over time but also in evolutionary form, showing the path of progress, not only in evolutionary sense in the form of interaction different agents leading to some sort of contradiction and then the development, this evolution can be in the form of learning or artificial intelligence and so on. And the most recent development in game theory is what is called behavioral game theory, because mainstream in behavioral game theory now people have included issues of psychology, issues of politics, issues of morality, and all ethics, and they bring, because when there are human interaction, these issues are very important. Issues of whether I am going to make a decision, does it hurt my other parties or not? To consider these sort of issues can be also considered in game theory. So this area of game theory is called behavioral game theory, because traditionally there has been some criticism of game theory saying that game theory is selfish, a method of selfish behavior, because traditionally it was assumed that in game theory we assume that people are making decisions for their own interest. But it is now possible to develop game theory model where decisions are not made only for the interest of one person but for the interest of other people. So that sort of more ethics, moral behavior and psychology and culture, all that sort of moral philosophy issue and psychology can be also included in game theory, which is called behavioral game theory. So if we want to, and if we want to develop a game theory model, so what are the first things we need to understand or identify? And we have to also remember that though the game theory is a mathematics subject, but there are now hundreds and hundreds game theory studies and publications and and consultancy report without much or any mathematics at all. So what it means, the mathematics, game theory intuition side is also equally important, not only the mathematics side, but application or intuition is important. So even if I want to do game theory, I have PhD students, some of them are not mathematics background, they will be using game theory still, but will be using this sort of framework, elements of game theory, not the mathematics of game theory. So anybody can do game theory research and publication or application, or apply to even the professional life, personal life or political life, if we have a good understanding of these elements of the game theory model. Game theory models. The game theory, first of all, multi-agent systems, multi-party systems. There will be different people involved in this system, different agents, not people. It can be like computers, because one of the areas of application of application of game theory has been computer science. And in computer science, there is no human being involved, but it's more interaction and different computing units. So doesn't have to be the agents don't need to be human being. The agents, parties can be even computer stations, computer nodes, computing nodes, different computers. So it's a multi-agent, so multi-parties. The party can be anything, including human beings. So there will be different people, from 2 to many. And this should be mainly generally distributed system. One of the aspects of distributed, sometimes they are may not be all together. Like electricity, grids, they are a distributed system. One of the areas of application of game theory in engineering is in the power engineering system, to develop games, to develop optimal power system with different grids. So it's normally game theory and basis is more distributed system and different agents, but then they are not isolated. There are some interactions among them. Okay, so first thing there will be many agents, but there are some interactions with interdependent strategies. Like for example, now we are in a game in this classroom between the audience and for myself, and then we have some interdependence. We are not completely isolated. Interdependence means I am telling something, then you have some reaction to that, so you are listening. Probably, hopefully, and then you are forming your own judgment. So we have some interdependence. So in game theory element, one of the important elements, there should be some interdependence, interactions, and so that is second. And then there will be some rules of games, like what sort of relationship we have in between us, say the audience and myself. We are more in a cooperative situation because we are trying to understand game theory and how to apply in business. So we have same objective. So if many parties have the same objective, means it's a cooperative game. So this is the rule of the game. And like the rule of the game here, I am giving the talk mainly and the audience is more listening. So this is another rule of the game. So there will be some rules of the game that determine the interdependence, and also at the end there is some payoffs. Payoffs in a sense like some outcome or benefit or loss or some outcome there, payoffs which we can represent, like for example, nothing personal, like we have this game here in this class, and the outcome would be payoff would be probably improved understanding for all of us. It is about game theory. So this is our payoff, both sides. And then often this can be represented in some values, numbers. So the outcome can be represented either some values. It can be quantitative, it can be also qualitative. It doesn't have to be always numbers. And these are sort of interactive. And normally, as I say, traditional game theory assumes that there are rational decisions. The rational is a very controversial topic word in philosophy. What is rational? But rational means sometimes it can be the correct decision, rational can be the ethical decision, rational can be the decision that benefits me most, or rational can be the what is the right thing to do. But generally this rational can be used in game theory in many forms. So if my philosophy, ethics says that in my decision making I will consider my audience feeling. If that is my case, that can be my rational decision. Rational means which is acceptable to the decision makers. And when we have a game, it is possible to solve it. Solve it means come to a conclusion and find some results. What is the outcome? Like as I said, our outcome from this seminar lecture is improved understanding of game theory by all of us. because I will get also some question from you that will also help me to understand. So there will be some outcome. So these are the elements of game theory, and you can see in business disciplines, all business subjects, almost every situation we can represent by this sort of game theory framework. There will be always multi-party, there will be independent studies, there are some good rules of cooperation or non-cooperation, and also there are some decisions and there are some outcomes. But the problem of multi-agent system are this, when there are multi-agent system, briefly, there can be information problem, asymmetric information. Like what you know, maybe I don't know, because I'm telling you that I know reasonably good game theory, but that is my hidden information. You don't know exactly whether that is true or not. Similarly, I don't know the audience mathematical skill or interest in game theory. So from my side, I have also, I don't know the information. So in decision making, they become problem. Like I thought many times what sort of PowerPoint I will prepare, because I didn't know the background of the audience. So decision making, that's a question of decision making. Similarly, many situations, there will be a information problem, and then also the most important thing in this world is, especially in business, is incentive. Like, why do I give this lecture, and why do you come to this class? What are the incentives? What are the benefits? What is the motivation? And in economics, James Tobin, once he said that economics is a science of incentive. Everything you can bring to the incentive issue. And many people say some economies are developing well, some economies are not developing well. Like some economic, like in the Soviet system, collapsed. Many of these things can be explained in terms of incentive. There was no incentive, the economy to progress or develop, so they collapsed or break down. So important. And then the issue, I am giving a lecture, so what is the incentive that you will listen to me? Maybe I can distribute some 500 Hong Kong dollar notes to every participant so that they can listen what I am saying. So that can be an incentive. So incentive is very important. Incentive does not have to be, one of the controversial area, incentive doesn't have to be monetary always, moral persuasion, And if I am in your case, in audience, my incentive would be to learn, to pick up game theory like me quickly, in few months, do high class publication, maybe get Nobel Prize. So you have an incentive to listen to my presentation, and that incentive is not monetary, not 500 Hong Kong dollar note, but it's an incentive to become famous, become successful. And another thing, my understanding is that if we use game theory in our research, then it is easy to publish also, because the articles will look more technical, will look more involved, with substantial materials inside, more realistic, and it's easy to publish in top grade journals. So, and then the top grade job publication is important for academic like us. And there is also other sort of problems, like many situations there are principal agent problem, analysis of conflict. This is the serious problem in everywhere in the world, analysis where the conflict of interest. Conflict of interest between the head of the school and lecturers and the students, president of the university and the staff, and in the family, husband and wife, children and parents. In the parents, children want to study, parents do not want them to study. So analysis, the conflict. So in almost every situation, there will be some sort of contradiction or conflict. And this can be coming from coming from different institutions, different culture, different age, and so on. So some of these multi-agent issues, system issues, should be addressed by game theory, and that is the purpose of game theory, how to resolve this issue and make correct and efficient and optimal decisions or allocation of resources, both the decisions, but at the same time that will give also optimal allocation of resources and also optimal decisions by resolving these issues. So that is the purpose of game theory. So you can see game theory is a really very practical thing, very useful, because it's trying to solve real life, real problems. So some of this. And as I said, there are different dimensions, mathematics and intuitions and application side. And as I said, my current interest, and I also advocate more application side, because game theory can be used many real life problems. So mathematicians are developing a first, but as I said, in my next life I intend to be a mathematician like Professor David Young, but in life I will try to focus on solving practical problems. So we can really focus on research or application or teaching or even applying this thing in our real life, in business and also personal life. And honestly, I am telling you, I thought I had quite expertise in relationship in my previous to my game theory, but when I pick up game theory, then my understanding of managing relationship has also increased, because I can see the relationship from game theory perspective. So if you don't want to use game theory for your teaching or research or business application, but still there is a scope to apply or adopt or implement game theory even in your personal life, in dealing with the boss or dealing with the husband and wife and children. And you will see later on there are books and publications, or even YouTube. You can see there are YouTube on, even I have seen how to use game theory for salary increase, for promotions, and how to fix the boss. Because game theory can give the different intuition which really can be applied, and I have seen is for my personal life is really very useful to analyze the situation in terms of, is it conflict? If it is conflict, then what sort of game we are playing between husband and wife, how to fix this conflict, and then we get to real outcome. And different form games do give this sort of intuition, understanding, and is a framework to really think, mental framework to understand even real life relationship. And game can be of different forms, but as you know, the time is not that much that I can go through all of them. So different times will give different forms of game, give different sort of background, different sort of understanding, different sort of intuition, and different sort of outcome and different sort of solutions. And this is an example, but I don't know whether we'll go to the mathematical side, but this is one of the most common forms of game is called two-person zero-sum game. You probably had a zero-sum game, or most common case, simple case, two-person zero-sum game. In this game, what is the gain for one party? It can be the loss for another party. So the total outcome will be, if you add them together, then it will become zero. So that's why it's called zero sum. Somebody gains, the other person loses. So and here and in this situation, normally a simple game theory will look like that. There are two parties here, the player A, player B, and they have different strategies. A1, 1, 2, 3, and for B, 1, 2. These are the different strategies. If A is playing one strategy number 1, B is playing strategy number 1, the outcome would be 10. So this is called payoff matrix, and this payoff matrix we just put all the different strategies and their outcomes. And in this sort of payoff, in this sort of game, as I said, the two people are making some actions and there is outcome. So if A is making strategy 1 and B is making strategy 1, then the outcome is 10. And in game theory, we have to use some criteria to make decision. Like we have these alternatives, then from this, which one is optimal? Which one do we choose? So there are different criteria or objective functions to choose, make this decision. And in this case, in this game, what we call is mini-max or max-min solution. The criteria is called max-min or mini-max, alternatively. That means what is maximum for you, minimum for me, so we choose that one. Or alternatively, what is maximum for you, minimum for you, so we choose that common. And in this case, we have the solution is 10. So 10 is minimum for A, and I think maximum for B. So this is the sort of outcome, but it's a very simple form. And in research for students' coursework or thesis or academic research, we can even do very simple game theory model like this one to analyze the situation. If we focus on the theory side, intuition side, we can develop very simple game theory model like that, and by hand we solve and get the results, and then we can write a good paper also. And another important form of game which is very well known, many people outside economics they know, is called prisoner's dilemma. And in this game there are two prisoners, two convicts, and the issue is now the police have caught them, and then the issue is should they confess they have done the crime or not. And this is called prisoner's dilemma. That what is showing here in this, what people say in real life societies, especially in market economies, are characterized by the existence of this prisoner's dilemma. That means interest of different peoples don't coincide. One person's interest is different from other person's interest. So a game theory has been struggling like last almost 50 years how to solve this prisoner's dilemma problem in mathematical form, but also in application side, how we can overcome this prisoner's dilemma and to develop cooperation. Even in economy where there will be this sort of prisoner's dilemma, what sort of institutions or economic management or laws and regulations or organization can we develop where this sort of prisoner's dilemma can be fixed and we can achieve cooperation, because cooperation will lead better outcome, improved outcome. So in this case you can see if both they confess, they get 10 years sentence, and if one does confess, the other does not, the first will get free and the other will get 15 years, and if both denies, then both get 2 years. So for example, you and me, we are for a hypothetical convict. So what will you do? What I will do? Because if both of us, if we discuss, and then if both of us we say, okay, we did steal this money, then both of us get 2 years. But if you don't confess, then you can get free. So you can see the interest of you and me are different. So what will you do? So that is a typical problem in real life, especially in business management and economic management. And a central problem in economic management, running an economy for the finance ministers and policymakers is how to solve this sort of prisoner's dilemma and form cooperation in the economy so that people can cooperate to reach a better outcome for the society and the economy. So what will you do? What do you think can be the should be done in this situation? In any way, so this is a challenge, and as a game theory has been struggling for a long time to how to solve the prisoner's dilemma, more intuition and also mathematics side. And there are different mathematical methods, computational algorithm, because as we know, game theory is a mathematical method, and unless we develop mathematical model, we can analyze the sort of situation by the elements of the game. By the strategies, by the parties and their decisions and outcome. But if we do develop a formal model, then you have to solve the model to get the outcome, and this can be solved by hand by powerful mathematicians, but it can be also nowadays the computer programs have developed. So there are many computer programs available which can be used to game theory, solving game theory models. So if you have a game theory research project, you can put analyze the situation, collect the data, put into a modeling form and use some computer programs. Then you don't need to know the algorithm or mathematical methods, So some of my students we are also doing using different computer programs to solve game theory. So because in that situation, it's not really necessary to any mathematics at all. It's mainly high school level algebra that can be used to do very serious game theoretic research. And some of the computer programs which are now available can be used are this. So what sort of research can we do? Like if we want to develop a research project or a consultancy work or for an organization, what are the first thing is our purpose of research may be designing some good system, like the president of this university may try to have a game theory project to design a better university. That can be used because I told my president, my university, he is an also economics professor. I am pushing him that you have to use my game theory to do designing your organization, your university, incentive and so on. And I think I am to keep on pushing, so they will probably eventually one day do. So designing better system that can be university, banks, economy or political system, and networks, connections, and developing organization, efficient organizations, good companies, and the economy, corporation, government bodies, charitable organizations, supply chain, and so on. So if you want to do an efficient supply chain system, so Hong Kong railway system, then the game theory is the only available efficient option. And then when we are talking designing multi-agent systems, and in this multi-agent system we need to also we need to also discuss the issues of when you are giving organization or network and systems, then we need to develop the system which is efficient, or an organization is efficient, which is fair. There are incentives for the different agents to cooperate, collaborate. give correct information, and also we have asymmetric information is given by, like in the university there is the performance evaluation. So when the president is trying to develop better university, the university administration needs to know how well the staff they are performing. So there is the need for information symmetry. Need to have correct information. The lecturer sleeping the whole day in the class or in the office or not, or they are really doing research. So we need to have information symmetry between the administrators and the lecturers. And so in order, other organizations say same. And when we develop different system or organization, we need to make sure that there is also cooperation among different agents and also coordination. So if we want to do research, or it's a question of practice, say if I am a CEO or president of the university or a minister, then if I am going to develop something, my system or network or organization, I will have to make sure that my organization or system has this sort of qualities. So the research can be done or practice, business managers can do practice, or ministers or politicians or administrators can try to develop organization which will have this sort of elements, these characteristics, satisfy this sort of criteria. So research can be done to do that, and the practitioners like CEO or managers need to understand also this thing. When they are if some students, when they finish graduation, they will go to and become supply chain manager, and they need to, when they will have to develop a good supply chain system for the company. And when they are developing good supply chain system, they can use game theory. And when they are going to design their supply chain system, the manager has to make that it is efficient, it is fair, it has incentive. So the manager sent the driver is not sleeping on the road, is doing the work. So what is the incentive the manager can give it to the driver so that the driver will do the work? And collecting information, and all the people in the supply chain will cooperate, and there is coordination of work and information. And to do this, we can do negotiation, we can do cooperation, we can do also conflict can sometimes achieve objectives, coordination, we can bring altruism and reciprocity. So these are the areas where we can do academic research, but these are the areas where people can also apply for practice in real life, doing a good being a good manager or good president and so on. And for solving the problem, as you can see, in a supply chain system there is a problem of conflict of interest, there is problem of coordination, cooperation, and then we need to design a game. We need to design the rules or the system that is efficient, and people will not have that sort of problems. And this area in game theory is called mechanism design or incentive design. What sort of mechanism can we design so that we can formulate an efficient supply chain system, either write a paper or the practicing manager. And this has been an important area of research, and as I mentioned before, several people got Nobel Prize for their contribution to mechanism design. Like for the economy, how the economy will perform well, then that depends what sort of mechanism, rules or regulations and institutions the government has formulated. And as I said, in game theory has the advantage it can be used for academic research, but it can be used for professional practices as well as all areas of personal and professional life. And Game theory is very useful. This is my belief, and if somebody does not believe, a skeptic can try some of the YouTube. If you search YouTube has many game theory videos. And for amateur academic like me, I initially, I am not a mathematician. I don't have any degree, diploma or certificate in mathematics. And how do I learn mathematics myself in Melbourne? And then I started as an amateur, hobby using YouTube. And then I picked up, this is some of the YouTube game theory videos are done by top universities in the world, like Yale University and also MIT and so on. And they're very highly academic, also highly mathematical. And then because sometimes books we don't know what the symbol mean. How to say this, but in video these are explained, just lectures. So if sometime if anybody interested can just do the YouTube search and can see many. There are also online courses. They give you formal diploma and certificate by top universities like Yale University and also other universities, MIT also. So there are online short courses, training program. They also give a certificate. You get an Yale University certificate or Harvard University certificate doing through online. You have to register. So there are different materials, and this shows game theory is very useful. As I said, even not profession, may not even for practice, for academic research, but organizing many things, personal life, even non-formal game theory can be useful. I have given some like some of the books, because sometimes I think in the past one of the reasons why I did not do game theory many years, because of I thought you have to do all game theory research analytically by hand, solving the mathematics. So I was not sure whether I can do or whether should I do or not. Especially if you are solving by hand, then you may not be able to solve a big problem, large scale real life problem. So now computer programs have solved that, but also now you can see some of these books and they don't have really any mathematics, but they are also high quality, high powered books discussing very serious economics and business issues, some of these books. So like games, strategies and manager, and they have really good discussion of how this sort of game theory can be used real life business and economics, decision making and problem solving without any mathematics at all, or virtually with some numbers. And these are the areas where game theory can be applied, and one of the areas which my area of interest and expertise in game theory is game theory using for risk management. This is the I think is extremely useful application of game theory, but this area is not also very well developed in the game theory literature. And but this is the focus of my research in game theory, because in game theory I'll just briefly discuss. If you are doing risk management in accounting, in finance, in supply chain, or business strategy, or economics, wherever you can use we can use game theory. Because game theory inherently is an uncertain environment, because there are different agents. So their strategies are different, their information is different. So there is initially there is uncertainty. We don't know what the other person is thinking or doing, or their intention, motivation. So there is also this. Game theory is really has inbuilt uncertainty in it. So this is a method for predominantly dealing with uncertainty. So this is the first thing for risk management. Secondly, the second thing is risk in game theory. The mathematical structure can be also adopted for different sort of risk management, including different form of risk management strategies. And if somebody is interested, you can contact me. I can just explain how to do that. But game theory is a really very powerful tool for risk management, especially nowadays. Even sort of different terrorism threat or dealing with your enemies. This is a risk. Like if you are in a business, you have a competitor. You don't know what is your competitor doing. There is a risk of loss, real, not uncertainty, but risk that your opponent may hurt your business. So in that situation, you need to formulate your own strategy and what your rival is doing and what will you do. So if the rival is doing strategy B, he will probably do strategy A. So how to minimize or manage your risk of loss? How to minimize loss? Game theory can be also used for that. But there are other game theory, mathematics side also other form of structure or facilities where easy to include the specification of risk and uncertainty, especially through probability distribution and so on. And it is possible to do very serious stochastic game model to do risk management, and that is and also one of the important areas is for law practice and also law research. In legal practice, there are many examples where game theory really is used. Like should you go to the court or not? What is your opponent is doing? What sort of strategy do you formulate? And if your opponent knows that you are weak, they may do it. And at the end, how do you make the settlement? Do you give a lot of concession or not? Do you cooperate? Or if you cooperate, how much should you cooperate? These sort of legal issues are also handled and managed in real life by game theory tools, techniques, and concepts. And as I said, these can be applied in many areas. And as you know, one of the important areas of application of game theory is diplomacy and war. And those probably all of you know that they say that one of the earliest contribution to game theory was made in China. Because the book, The Art of War, they how to fight, how to have a war, how to do a war, how to win, The Art of War. That book is a game theoretic book, and it is cited in many game theory books that this is an original contribution to game theory. So the game theory, and even in Europe, Second World War and before that, all the Balkan War and so on, there is evidence really the formally game theory was used in the meeting of the ministers. They use game theory concept to decide what we do, how do we fight and so on. So game theory, if you are a general, you have more benefit from the game theory than if you are an academic. So if your people are going to diplomacy, they can also learn a little bit of as said, the applications is one of the areas is mechanism design, and we can develop different forms of game theory model. And as I said, I have a strong interest in designing games or mechanism design, but I don't have time and I will not go into detail. But this is an area of application of game theory, and if you see the YouTube videos on the internet, there are many materials on mechanism design also. An area of, if you see one course on game theory, they will have several lectures or presentation on mechanism design. How to design a system or rules or games that can give us optimal or better outcome. So mathematically, a game theory or mechanism design model may look like that, but as I said, if we get the numbers, if we put in the equations, then we can easily solve by computer programs nowadays. So with this little bit of knowledge of optimization, we can do very serious game theory research. And one other area of game theory or mechanism design is computational game mechanism design or computational game theory. When I said it is possible to use computer programs, then and in many computer science department there is now a separate subject called computational game theory, and many people are doing PhDs in computational game theory in the Department of Computer Science, because when you apply computer programs, then there is issues of algorithm, there is issues of computer learning, machine learning, parallel computing, and those are the issues in game theory also. So when you are going to use computer program for game theory, then we need to learn those sort of algorithm and computer science issues. So this is another branch in game theory, which is called computational game theory or computational mechanism design. And as I said, in many computer science department in the universities now, they have a separate subject called computational game theory, and many people are increasingly specializing in that area. In last August, 3 months ago, I went to Dalian University of Technology as a visiting professor, and I gave also a talk there, and I met their lecturers and the students, and they came from computer science. Majority of them came from computer science the department in my presentation, and they are doing computer science related computer theory, game theory sort of thesis and papers. So computational game theory is also a very important emerging area in business or computer science, or also in game theory. And so far what we have said is more game theory model. Does not mean that if you don't like algebra, or if you don't like this sort of metrics, if you don't want to learn a new computer program to solve game theory, there is also a big area of research in game theory, which is empirical research, which is like using econometrics, using SEM, structural equation modeling, or using statistics. And in this area of game theory, what they try to see that suppose you play a game, you take a strategy. How effective is your strategy in real life? It is necessary to understand. And how do we learn that? We learn through empirical research, econometric research. Like the issue, I am giving an example so it will be easy to understand. Like if we increase the salary of the CEOs, will it lead to better performance of the organization or not? Because this is a game theory question. Because if you want to design a game, to achieve a better outcome, one of the incentive or mechanism is to give higher salary. But giving salary, does it really lead to better performance of the organization or not? So if the company board is considering they want to increase the salary of the CEO, before taking that decision or strategy, it is important for the board to understand whether this strategy will be effective or not. So how they can know? So they can find somebody to do research. Different companies in Hong Kong or in the world, they have given different levels of salary and what has been the performance related. So we collect data related to salary and performance of the organizations, and then we do regression and see the salary can affect performance or not. So here we are doing an empirical research, using statistics, but the theoretical foundation background is game theoretic. So for doing game theory research, we don't need to really focus on optimization, but it's also possible to do statistical or econometric research also. Though this area is not very well known to game theorists because they focus on high-powered mathematics, but this is also very quite common, especially in contract theory. What sort of you give this contract? Will it lead to better outcome for the organization? And before that, we need evidence. So where do we get evidence? We do statistical analysis, econometric study. Okay, and then we can also, as I said, these are the different computer programs. And though game theory and mechanism design, what I discuss is it looks very simple, but we have to remember game theory and mechanism designs and related computational game theory. These are I think, the very hardest areas in mathematics also. So there are also a lot of controversial and complicated theoretical issues, mathematical issues, computational issues, and algorithmic issues. And people are struggling, Some of them, when I try to understand, my head starts cracking. So there are a lot of complicated issues, advanced academic issues, conceptual issues. What it means that there is a lot of scope for original contributions. If somebody is smart and motivated, can really solve many other existing issues and we have said that. So this is the conclusion. It is possible to game theoretic application and research, and as I said, it's not difficult, and we can apply game theory to professional practice in real life for doctoral, postdoctoral, and professional research and so on. And for my case, I like more behavioral game model, because in this game model we can bring the issues of philosophy, psychology, politics, culture, and morality, and so on. And in the past there was some sort of criticism of game theory being selfish, but again now there are a lot of literature, publication, and books which have shown that game theory has good moral foundation, and moral is consistent with moral philosophy. So that is the end of my presentation, and then I am happy if you have any comments or questions to discuss.
Thank you, Professor Islam.